Hey, I'm Johnny from PYTCH, and my team and I are the people who have produced the West Pole experience at Westonbirt Arboretum. I'm in our Boneyard right now and want to talk through some of the equipment here. If you're interested, if you're not, scroll on. So, first thing, this is what we call heavy power. This is a 3-phase connector, and this is the big stuff we use to move the really large amounts of power around the site. You've got 5 pins inside here, because essentially it's like having 3 power supplies in one. So that will power a big area on site, especially because we're using LED. If we walk on down a bit further, you'll see these things here, which is called a SockerPEX fan out. Now what this does is this powers motors. So for some of the features here, we have to lift some stuff up into the air. We don't do that by hand, it's too much like hard work. So we use 3-phase electrics and the motor will lift things up for us. Walking on down some more, this is called a single-phase cable. This is a lot like a 13-amp socket you might have in your house, except it's bigger. So this is a 32-amp socket, so it's about 2.5, 3 times what you'd have through your power socket in your house. So that'll allow us to power quite a large number of lights. Moving on down a bit further, we've got some festoon. So when you walk around the event village or the car park, you'll see a load of this as the light bulbs that are hung overhead. These are a really good way of lighting a big area. Now, some people might think, why don't you just use a big floodlight? The reason is, if you have a big floodlight, you get shadows everywhere. And if you have one light behind you, the shadow in front of you will be completely pitch dark because you can't see anything. Whereas if you scatter lots of very small lights all over the place, you get a general wash of light so you can see what you're doing, and it feels a lot safer and more welcoming. Moving on down here, what else have we got? Distro boards. So, when those big 3-phase sockets come in, you've got to break that down into smaller power supplies you can use for different areas. And to do that, we use these distribution boards here. So that's a 32-amp 3-phase coming in there. And then we can take lots of these little 16-amp power supplies out to power smaller things. What they also have in them is things called RCBOs. And what these do is, if we try and draw too much power, which we should never do, that will turn itself off to make itself safe. It also has a thing in there called RCD. What that means is, if you ever get an electrical fault, for example, water gets in something or a light bulb gets broken, for example, the power gets switched off again. So all the while, there's this safety measure in place that if you draw too much power or there's an electrical fault, it should cut the power out straight away. And that's really important for site safety. What else can I show you? Inside the marquee here. So while a lot of this gear can get wet, some of it doesn't like getting wet until it's set up. So we've stored a load of stuff inside this marquee here. So I'm kind of excited about this because I don't actually know what everything is being used for, and I've just seen a big concert sound system here, and I'm kind of excited as to how we're going to be using that on the job and why we need 4 double 18-inch bass bins for a job like this one. So that kind of excites me. We've also got some interesting custom-made stuff like these strange bits of wood here. These are to hold speakers underneath, and we had to fabricate them in such a way that water couldn't get inside the speakers because these speakers are not weatherproof. So overall, that's just some of the kit we use. It gets more and more complex and obscure the deeper you go, but hopefully there's some interesting stuff in there that gives you a slightly nerdy insight as to what goes on behind the scenes at things like the West Pole at Westonbirt Arboretum.